Why is it that many of us prioritize improving our ways of working and setting up the teams well only after they've crashed and burned? If you're a software engineering leader or a team lead, this one is for you. I think many of the perceived problems I've seen throughout my lifetime working with many teams and in software delivery across many years, I think in a multi-team organization, it's very hard to align ways of working across many teams. And it's also very hard to see why some teams perform more consistently than others. And I think often it's pinned down to, well, that team has this senior person working in it, or they have this type of, smooth part of the product they're working with, whilst another team has a very difficult, complex area or whatever. And that might in part be the truth, but it's not the whole truth. So I think there's a paradox in continuous improvement and for teams to look at their part of the work and how to improve that we tend to down prioritize that type of work when it's needed the most. So when there are critical things, revenue driving things that need to be done, those have to be prioritized, right? We might have legal obligation to a customer. We might, have stakeholders that really need this thing delivered by this point in time and so forth. So we have to do this, right? But if that's your reality always, things are going to break down ultimately, and it's going to be perhaps even a spectacular crash and burn, right? I think the real problem, rather than the perceived problem with this thing, is that doing real improvement work, both for ways of working and tooling and product work or whatever it might be, it takes time and it takes resources that we rarely have time to prioritize. And there's always something that has a direct return on investment or direct impact on revenue that we sort of have a hard time motivating why we would prioritize this improvement that might not have a clear connection to revenue versus this thing over here that has a clear connection to revenue, right? And ultimately, it's also maybe perhaps too expensive and too arduous a task to spend a lot of engineer time on looking at these improvements. Now, I know this is not the case always. It's not the case for all teams, but I think it's very common, right? When the issues become so severe or there's just too much work on one team and we haven't spent the time improving our ways of working, improving our tooling, simplifying our lives, right? Something crashes that has a direct impact on those activities that you were supposed to deliver to the customer. We then scramble, right? And it becomes a really nasty situation, potentially even in the organization. Like, why did this happen? What's wrong? What's not good in our teams and our leadership? We need to think about, okay, what do we need to do here to be able to show that we're changing things up so that we can deliver? So it becomes sort of this exercise that can normally translate into large-scale transformation projects, reorganizations, tossing people around in teams just to show maybe to the board of directors, maybe show the customers that we're doing something now to resolve these issues that we had in the past, right? And we might bring in a consultancy firm from outside that comes and analyzes our situation, shows us some PowerPoints, like, this is what you're doing, this is what you should be doing. And it's all a lot of work, right? And it doesn't always have the desired effect down the bottom line. Let me produce an alternative to all of this, right? And I'm going to call it the proactive solution. So if we're looking at the real problems, which is that improvement work is down prioritized, it's hard to stay consistent, it takes a lot of time and resources that we need to spend on more prioritized items, right? So if we hit that, the time and resources required to do the improvement work, and we reduce that down, it's going to be much easier to prioritize it, right? And maybe we can do it side by side with the other work that's prioritized. And if we can help teams stay consistent, taking small steps and essentially bite-sized improvement things week after week after week, that's going to compound into something bigger over time. And we also have to realize, I think, that not all teams need the same solution. All teams are working in different contexts. It's different individuals, slightly different team culture, even though they might all have the same, company culture in them. They're working on different things. One team might be a platform team. Some other team might work on some, a front end or back end or whatever it is, how you've sliced your engineering work, right, in the organization. But they're all different teams and they need different things in their context to be able to work well in delivering the work that they're doing. And also, if we can get a view of all teams across the organization to understand where we might put in some extra help, if we want to, hire a coach to come in and do some work, or if we want to put a good team that's performing really well in one area together with another team that's not performing as well in that area, to see if they can help out by, chatting about how are you guys doing this and what do you do if this happens and all that kind of stuff, right? If we can focus on that, we might not have to crash and burn, and we can continuously take small improvement steps over time to build really strong teams across the entire organization. If this sounds interesting to you, you should check out this next video to see how we solve this at Aurora Coach.